Diyu is the Chinese mythical equivalent of the Christian hell. It's a loose imagination of a Buddhist equivalent of Naraka, the Buddhist definition of pain or torture. Diyu is usually mentioned as an underground maze with various levels and chambers, to which souls are taken after death to atone for the sins they committed when they were alive. The exact number of levels in Diyu and their associated deities differ between Buddhist and Taoist interpretations. Some speak of 3 to 4 courts, others mention 10 courts of hell, each of which is ruled by a judge, collectively known as the 10 Yama Kings. Other Chinese legends speak of the 18 levels of hell. Each court deals with a different aspect of atonement and different punishments. Most legends claim that sinners are subjected to gruesome tortures until their quote-unquote deaths, after which they are restored to their original state for the torture to be repeated again. Mount Penglai is considered a mythical land in Chinese mythology. The mountain is often said to be important to the 8 immortals, pivotal characters in Chinese myth. Supposedly, everything on the mountain seems white, while its palaces are made from gold and platinum, and jewelries grow on trees. There is no pain and no winter season, just beautiful weather all year long. There are bowls and glasses that never become empty no matter how much people eat or drink from them, and there are magical fruits growing in Penglai that can heal any disease, grant eternal youth, and even raise the dead. Historically, the first emperor of a unified China, Qin Shi Huang, in search of the elixir of life, made several attempts to find the island where the mountain is located, to no avail. A Jiangshi, also known as a Chinese hopping vampire or zombie, is a type of reanimated corpse in Chinese legends and folklore. A Qing dynasty scholar mentioned that the reasons for a corpse being reanimated can be classified into 2 groups: a recently deceased person returning to life, and a long-buried corpse not decomposing. Some in-depth reasons are given now. The chemical makeup of the burial mound is unsuitable for living creatures, so bacteria is not present to help in the decaying process. The body's hair and nails appear to be growing, and there are no evident signs of decomposing. If not dealt with, the corpse will eventually become a jiangshi over time. In fact, a corpse's flesh will actually contract and withdraw, so hair and nails originally concealed under the flesh will become more exposed, creating the illusion of growing hair and nails. Other methods are the supernatural arts to resurrect the dead, spirit possession of a dead body, a corpse absorbs sufficient qi to return to life, the dead person is not buried even after a funeral has been held, the corpse comes back to life after it is struck by a bolt of lightning, or when a pregnant cat, or in some variations a black cat, leaps across the coffin. When a person's soul fails to leave the deceased body, due to improper death, suicide, or just wanting to cause trouble, a victim of premature burial. Generally, a jiangshi's appearance can range from unremarkable, as in the case of a recently deceased person, to downright disgusting, hence rotting flesh, rigor mortis, as with corpses that have been in a state of decay for over a period of time. The Chinese characters for jiangshi literally means hard or stiff. It is believed that the jiangshi is so stiff that it cannot bend its limbs and body to move properly, so it has to move around by hopping while keeping its arms stretched out for mobility. A particular feature is its greenish-white skin. One theory is that it derives from fungus or mold growing on corpses. It is said to have long white hair all over its head, and may behave like animals due to the jiangshi not having more than basic consciousness. Originally, the jiangshi did not desire blood as more modern depictions now show. This is probably Western influence. The jiangshi traditionally acted like Western zombies. There are also methods to combat the jiangshi. Jiangshis are also said to be terrified of their own reflections. Peachwood branch or peachwood sword, these having important aspects in Chinese culture. A rooster's call, again having to do with Chinese customs. Jujube seeds, fire, hoofs of a black donkey, vinegar, mentioned by coroners in eastern Fujian province, Bagua sign, the I Ching, Tong Shu, glutinous rice, rice chaff, azuki beans, a handbell, thread stained with black ink, blood of a black dog, stonemason's awl, axe, and a broom.
中阴身，中阴身。
In Mahayana Buddhism, a state of a soul after death but before reincarnation, usually within 49 days of the actual death.
地府灵，地府靈。
A ghost that is bound to a certain place.
芭蕉鬼，芭蕉鬼。
A female ghost which dwells in a banana tree and appears crying under the tree at night, sometimes carrying a baby. In some folk tales from Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia, some greedy people ask for lottery numbers from the ghost in hopes in winning money. They tie a long red string around the tree trunk and stick sharp needles into it, and then tie the other end of the string to his or her bed. At night, the ghost appears and begs the person to set her free in return for winning lottery numbers. If the person does not fulfill his or her promise to set the ghost free after winning the lottery, he or she will meet with a horrifying death.
吊死鬼，吊死鬼。
Are the spirits of those who have been hanged in either execution or suicides. They are usually shown with long red tongues sticking out of their mouths.
餓鬼，餓鬼。
A ghost which appears during the Hungry Ghost Festival. It is believed to be the spirit of a person who has committed sins of greed, condemned to suffer in hunger after death. It has a mouth which is too small for eating food and is covered with green or gray skin, sometimes with a pot belly. The ghost suffers from an insatiable appetite. It haunts the streets and kitchens, searching for offerings and decomposed food. These hungry ghosts consume absolutely anything, even excreted waste and rotten flesh. There are various types, some having fire-breathing ability, while others suffer from anorexia.
鬼婆，鬼婆。
A ghost which takes the form of a kind and friendly old woman. They may be spirits of amas who used to work as servants in rich families. They return to help their masters after death in housekeeping affairs or to look after young children and babies.
鬼樹，鬼樹。
Spirits which live in trees. They confuse travelers by appearing in random locations, especially in forests.
女鬼，女鬼。
A vengeful female ghost with long hair and in a white dress. In folklore, this is the ghost of a spirit of a woman who committed suicide while wearing a red dress. She usually meets some injustice, such as being wronged or sexually abused when she was alive. She returns to take her revenge. In traditional folklore, the color of red symbolizes anger and vengeance when applied to ghosts.
日本鬼兵，日本鬼兵。
The spirits of Japanese soldiers who died during the Second World War. Although these ghosts are not traditional Chinese ghosts in nature, they appear only in modern Chinese ghost story accounts. These ghosts are usually seen dressed in military uniforms and carrying rifles or katanas for officers. The Chinese, especially those who suffered during the Japanese occupation of eastern China and Southeast Asia during the war, see Japanese soldiers as brutal killers of countless civilians. The appearances of this ghost evokes feelings of loneliness, death, cruelty, torment, and fear.
水鬼，水鬼。
Literally means water ghost. They are usually the spirits of those who drowned and continue living in the water. They attack unsuspecting victims by dragging them underwater and drowning them in order to take possession of their body, as the spirit will now return to the living in the victim's body, whereas the victim's spirit becomes the new
水鬼，
and seeks to return to the living as well. This cycle repeats endlessly.
無頭鬼，無頭鬼。
Headless ghosts who roam around aimlessly. They are usually the spirits of those who have been sentenced to execution by beheading. In some popular accounts, these ghosts approach the living at night and ask where their heads are. Sometimes they are shown as carrying their severed heads on their side.
遊魂野鬼，遊魂野鬼。
The wandering spirits of the dead.
冤鬼，冤鬼。
The spirits of those who have died wrongful deaths. The concept appeared extremely early in Chinese history.
英靈、陰靈。
The spirits of those who have died before birth as a human being. This idea supposedly originated from Japan.
賤
Some reported ghosts would actually reincarnate. These ghosts are basically ghosts of ghosts.
詞人、紙人。
Dolls made from paper which are burned as offerings to the dead to become their servants.
黑白無常、黑白無常。
These are the black guard of impertinence and white guard of impertinence, guardians of hell whose tasks are to lead the spirits of the dead to the underworld after death. The white guard and black guard are in charge of evil and good spirits respectively. The Doc Gabey is a common word for a type of spirit in Korean folklore. The Doc Gabey is a mythical being that appears in many old Korean accounts. Although usually frightening, it could also represent a humorous, grotesque-looking spirit or goblin. These creatures love mischief and playing mean tricks on bad people, and they rewarded good people with wealth and blessings. They are different from Gui-shin, in that they are not formed by the death of a human being, but rather by the transformation of an inanimate object. Gui-shin are Korean ghosts. They are people who have died, not monsters or creatures like the Doc Gabey. They can be found in many places, but are commonly in abandoned buildings, houses, cemeteries, forests, or other places of that nature. When a person who dies without completing something that they must do, an example is getting revenge or staying longer with their loved ones, the spirit remains on earth to complete the task before going to the underworld. However, very strong Gui-shin do not go to the underworld if they want to remain on earth, and over time these Gui-shin gain strength. There are a lot of legends surrounding the Gui-shin. Because they are a common form of ghosts, children often make them up to scare others, or parents tell stories to their children to teach them a lesson. Some legends are about revenge. Appearances of Gui-shin occur in high schools because schools in Korea can have, in a way, a very eerie atmosphere and look very abandoned at night. They often have long, narrow, echoing corridors that are very dark. All the corridors are similar and there are many floors, which makes it even scarier to those who are there. Gui-shin are usually transparent, legless, and floating in midair. Older Gui-shin usually have white hanbok, which are worn for funerals. They have long, drooping black hair and sometimes are faceless depending on their personality. Male Gui-shin are somewhat rare, but they're like female ghosts, except female Gui-shin are more often heard and seen. There are many versions of how the Gui-shin can appear to people. Gui-shin can appear as his or her true self. They're seen as floating and legless, standing still, usually facing the person who is witnessing the Gui-shin. Photographs or films, however, this is not often used in modern accounts. Dreams, reflections, other creepy appearances shown in movies, televisions, and comics. Gui-shin can also appear to be moving things or may prank you to get your attention. Objects may fall down, clattering or moving, physical contact with someone, objects missing, television or radio volume going up and down without anyone touching it. Something has changed in the room even though you yourself haven't touched anything. They'll do anything to get your attention essentially. When a Gui-shin approaches, the atmosphere can change most of the time. The area you might be in when a Gui-shin appears could feel eerie. You can feel a strong wind or breeze, and it is suddenly cold around you. Gui-shin have their own reasons to be on Earth still. Even wanting to stay longer is a reason. Depending on their personality and attitude, their strength and maliciousness can vary depending on the actual Gui-shin. To become a Gui-shin, they must have a very strong urge to stay, or else they will go to the underworld. Here are some common reasons why Gui-shin stay on Earth. Simply the desire to stay longer, wanting to stay longer with someone, a family, love, friend, or even other Gui-shin, revenge for someone, revenge for his or herself, an unsuccessful birth, guilt, or personal reasons. If they do not get a person's attention, they could become impatient. For example, they might want attention to send a message to a mortal human being, but if they don't understand or notice, Gui-shin may become a little bit aggressive as a result. Malicious Gui-shin who trick or kill people are extraordinarily dangerous, yet such sightings are rare. Gui-shin are just like any other ghosts, but become stronger as time passes for them. Very old ancient villages and towns very often have Gui-shin accounts. There are at least one place or sighting and witnesses of a Gui-shin in every place in Korea, since they're so common. and so highly entrenched in the culture. In Japanese mythology, Kujisake Onna, or slit-mouthed woman, is a woman who is mutilated by a jealous husband and return as a malevolent spirit. When rumors of alleged sightings began spreading in 1979, it caused a panic throughout Japan and in many rural towns. There were even reports of schools allowing children to go home early or in groups escorted by teachers for safety, and of police increasing local patrols. According to the legend, children walking home alone at night may encounter a woman wearing a surgical mask, which is a very common sight in Japan as people wear them to protect themselves from sickness. The woman will stop the child and ask,
Am I beautiful?
If the child answers no, then the child is killed with a pair of scissors that the woman carries. If the child answers yes, the woman would then pull away the mask, revealing that her mouth is bloody slit from ear to ear, and asks,
Am I beautiful now?
If the child answers no, then he or she will be cut in half. If the child answers yes, then the woman will slit the child's mouth to look like hers. It's impossible to run away from this spirit as she will simply reappear in front of the victim. When the legend reappeared in the late 1970s, rumors of ways to escape also emerged. Some sources say that she could be confused by answering her question with a neutral response, such as, "You are average." Unsure of what to do, she will give the person enough time to escape while she is lost in thought. Another way to escape is to tell her that they have a prior appointment. She will pardon herself and leave. But the most eerie circumstances about this urban legend is that during the 1970s, there was actually a woman who would chase school children with a knife. According to accounts, she was hit by a car while attempting to chase after a child. The woman would die in the accident, and people on the scene would later remark that her face was mutilated from the impact. Some say that this is the source of the slit-mouthed woman tale. The Tek-Tek, also known as Tek-Tek, is a Japanese urban legend about the ghost of a young woman, schoolgirl, who fell on a railway line and was cut in half by an oncoming train. My personal view of this urban legend is that it has something to do with this suicide by jumping in front of trains, which is sadly an ordinary thing to witness in some areas of Japan. Hanako-san, or Tore no Hanaka-san, Hanaka of the toilet, is a Japanese urban legend about the spirit of a young World War II era girl who haunts school bathrooms. She allegedly appears when one shouts her name. According to the legend, a person who goes to the third stall in the girl's bathroom on the third floor of a school building and knocks there 3 times before asking, "Are you there, Hanako-san?" And you will hear a voice answering, "I am here." If the person enters the stall, then there will be a small girl in a red skirt. Hanako-san is a popular and widespread urban legend. There are some variations of the Hanako story, as Hanako-san has been noted to have various origins, depending on the region of Japan or the school in question. Hanako was a common and typical girl's name in Japan during the 1950s when the legend supposedly began. My personal view of this has to do with the innocent children's deaths that were a result of the atomic bombings that occurred after the Second World War. The Nopparabo, or Faceless Ghost, is a Japanese legendary creature. This creature is actually very prominent in Japanese culture. They are sometimes mistakenly referred to as mujina, an old Japanese word for a badger or raccoon or anything like that. Although the mujina can assume the form of another, the Nopparabo are usually human beings. Although the mujina can assume the form of another, a foreign writer used the animal's name as the title of his story about faceless monsters, which naturally resulted in the misunderstanding of the Nopparabo and the mujina. Nopparabo are known for mostly frightening human beings but are otherwise harmless. They can appear at first as ordinary people, sometimes impersonate someone familiar to the victim, before causing their features to disappear, leaving a blank, smooth sheet of skin where the face should be. The Kappa are legendary creatures, extremely prevalent throughout Japanese culture, as they are a type of water sprite found in Japanese folklore. In Shinto, they are considered to be one of the many suijin, water deities. A hair-covered variation of a kappa is called a hyosupe kappa, and are typically depicted as roughly humanoid in appearance, about the size of a child. Their scaly reptilian skin ranges in color from green to yellow or even blue. Kappa supposedly inhabit the ponds and rivers of Japan and have various features to them in their native environments, such as webbed feet and hands. They are sometimes said to smell like fish, and they can swim extremely well. The expression Kappa no kawa naragai, a kappa drowning in the river, conveys the idea that even experts can mistake them for fish. Although their appearances varies from region to region, the most consistent features have them wearing a carapace, beak for a mouth, and the sada, an indentation on the top of the forehead that holds water, which is regarded as the source of their power. The cavity must be full whenever a kappa is away from the water. If it ever spills, the kappa will be unable to move at all, or even die in some legends. Another feature is that in some stories, that the kappa's arms are said to be connected to each other and able to slide from one side to the other. While they are primarily water creatures, they do on occasion venture onto land. When they do, the sada can be covered with a metal cap for protection. As a matter of fact, in some variations, kappa will spend spring and autumn in the water and rest of the year in mountains as kama no kami, mountain deities. Although they are reported to inhabit all areas of Japan, they are often said to be particular to Saga Prefecture. As water monsters, kappa have been frequently blamed for drownings and are often said to lure people to the water and pull them in with their great skill at wrestling. They are sometimes said to take their victims for the purpose of drinking their blood, eating their liver, or gaining power by taking away one's life force. A mystical ball said to contain their soul, which is located inside the anal cavity. Even in modern Japan today, signs warning people about the kappa can appear besides waters, lakes, and rivers in rural Japanese towns and villages. Kappa are also known as extraordinary ravishers of women. It was believed that if confronted by a kappa, there are few means of escaping them. Kappa, for one reason or another, obsess over being polite. So if a person was to gesture a deep bow toward the kappa, a kappa would more than likely return. In doing so, the water kept in their lily pad-like bowl on their head would spill out, and the kappa would be unable to move until the water on their forehead was refilled from the river in which the kappa lived. If a human was to refill it, supposedly, the kappa would then serve them for all eternity. Kappa are not entirely evil. However, they are curious of Japanese civilization and understand and speak the language. They may even befriend human beings in exchange for gifts and offerings such as nasu, which is Japanese eggplant, soba, which is noodles, and natto, which is fermented soybeans, or even kabocha, which is winter squash, but especially cucumbers, the only food kappa are known to enjoy more than human children. There is even a cucumber sushi-filled roll named for the kappa, which is called the kappamaki. Once befriended, kappa have been known to perform any number of tasks for human beings, such as helping farmers irrigate their land. Sometimes they will even bring the occasional gift of fresh fish, which is regarded as a sign of good fortune for the family that receives it. Kappa are also highly knowledgeable of medicine, and legend states that they taught the art of bone setting to Japanese in ancient times. Due to these benevolent acts, some shrines even worship the kappa. Yuki Onna, which is Snowwoman, is a spirit or yokai in Japanese folklore. She's a popular figure in Japanese culture. Yuki Onna appears on snowy nights as a tall, beautiful woman with long black hair and blue eyes. Her inhumanly appearance or transparent skin make her blend into the snowy landscape perfectly. She sometimes wears a white kimono, but other legends depict her as a nude woman, with only her face and hair standing out against the snow. Despite her inhuman beauty, her eyes can strike terror into mortal men. She can float across the snow, leaving no footprints. As a matter of fact, in some tales, they say that she has no feet at all, a feature of many Japanese ghosts, and she can transform into a cloud, mist, or snow if threatened. Some legends say that the Yuki Onna, being associated with winter and snowstorms, is the spirit of someone who perished in a snowstorm. She is at the same time beautiful and serene, yet ruthless in killing unsuspecting men. Until the 18th century, she was almost always portrayed as the evil spirit. Today, stories often depict her as more human-like, emphasizing her ghost-like nature and beauty. Ubume, a Japanese yokai, appears in folk stories and literature as an old woman with a child in her arms, imploring the passerby to hold the infant only to then disappear. As legend has it, the weight of the child increases until the point that the bewitched child is revealed to be nothing more than a huge rock or boulder. Rokuro Kubi, which are related to Nure Onna and yokai, are yokai found in Japanese folklore. They look like normal human beings by day, but at night they gain the ability to stretch their necks to great lengths. They can also change their face to better scare mortals. In their daytime human forms, Rokuro Kubi often lived undetected and may even take mortal spouses. Many Rokuro Kubi become so accustomed to such a life that they take great efforts to keep their demonic forms a secret. They are tricksters by nature, however, as the urge to frighten and spy on human beings is hard for them to resist. Some Rokuro Kubi thus resort to revealing themselves only to those that are drunk, fools, the sleeping, or the blind in order to satisfy their urges. Other Rokuro Kubi have no such reservations and go about frightening mortals as they see fit. A few, it is said, are not even aware of their true nature and consider themselves normal human beings. According to some tales, Rokuro Kubi were once normal human beings but were transformed by karma for breaking various aspects of Buddhism. Hikikomori, literally pulled inward, being confined, in English such as social withdrawal, is a Japanese reference to the phenomenon of reclusive young people who withdraw from social life entirely, often to extreme degrees of isolation and confinement. The term hikikomori refers both to the sociological phenomenon as well as people in general belonging to the social group. While the degrees of the phenomenon often vary on an individual basis, in the most extreme cases, some people remain in isolation for years or even decades. Often, hikikomori start out as school refusals, or fukuko in Japanese. An older term is tokoyohi. The Ministry of Health estimates that currently about 3,600,000 hikikomori live in Japan. About a third of these people who are aged 30 and older.